I am Shalina and I'm a Breathwork Mentor alongside lecturing English GCSE. Because when I look back at, who I am today and all them experiences and how they shaped me, I give thanks. I'm like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? I'm like, whatever you're doing, I want some of that. Give me some of that. I started to, grieve the loss of, a marriage, and losing a husband who no longer recognised me. I was like, this is not the man I married. Being still is so crucial because there is so much power waiting within, and people do not realise that. They are plugged into someone else's story.
So today's upfront discussion, and we're going to dig deep today now into the power of breathwork. Yes. Something that's really new to me. So we're going to dig deep into it today. But before we start, as fine style, we're joined by a guest who's in the middle of her master's to become a professional psychology and mental health and well-being practitioner, right? So again, we're going to talk about mental health and that aspect as well, but I think we've done it from a male's perspective on this podcast, but we're going to diverge around it from a female's perspective. Mm-hmm. But before we start, for the viewers, I'll let you introduce yourself, who you are and what do you currently do.
Okay, I am Shalina and I'm a Breathwork Mentor alongside lecturing English GCSE, and also I'm on the advisory board for Muslim Women's Network. I'll stop there. I sing as well. I'll stop there.
I was just about to say that because I thought you was going to forget that, right? And I've got it written down. I said, don't forget the singing side.
I get told off for that all the time. Like, what about your singing, Shalina? Yeah. And I'm a professional recording artist.
Do you know what, right? And I was looking at your Instagram. Where do you find the time? Because you are so busy and you do so much things. A mother as well, so it's not easy. Mm-hmm. How do you cram it all in?
Do you know what? Just give thanks. It just naturally happens. And I think when I was looking at my reel for 2023, I just was like, whoa, it was a lot, but I just enjoyed all of it. And it was literally a case of I show up, I do what I need to do and I leave, I make sure all my priorities are in check. And so, I'm living in my element. Give thanks.
You must be super organized as well. Super, super organized.
Yeah, my daughter calls me a control freak. Okay, but I was just like, you know what? I'm organized. Yeah, I think I've learned to be. I've got this thing about being smart with my time.
Yes.
And so I do something called the time matrix.
Okay.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm sleeping here, so that's just null and void because we're like, oh, you have 24 hours in a day. No, you don't. No, you don't. You're sleeping for how many hours? So now you're down to how many hours? And when I did that and I distributed my time and I was like, okay, I want to give value to being a mother, make sure I've given them time for their studies and whatnot, time for me doing my studies. It's possible.
Yeah.
You just have to be, very real with how your time is going in different places.
Yeah. Perfect. So, as always, when we start this, and I think we was talking off camera, as we grow and progress through our journey, we tend to reflect on some of those key moments in our early years that really defines who we are today. So for you, what would be some of those key moments in your early years that you think those experiences are really helping you now in your journey?
Yeah. So anyone that knows my story knows that I'm very outspoken about the fact that I was abused as a kid. There was a big family meeting. The abuser was confronted and he admitted it, And so what I say, fast forward, is being sexually abused as a child is one thing, but your family not responding to it the way that they should is another thing. And that pretty much set me up, because by 15, I was homeless.
Yeah.
When the family didn't support me, you go to school and the school are ready to support you, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I ended up in a children's home, and, it was a hard road, but I'm grateful for it, because when I look back at, who I am today and all them experiences and how they shaped me, I give thanks that I had singing at that age, because it kept me off the streets. It kept me busy.
Yeah.
I had to look for God. I had to look for spirituality, in my life. I tried everything. Christianity, that I was like, it's not working for me. African spirituality. I was part of the ancient Egyptian order. So I did a lot of soul searching to find and fill that emotional void that had been created at a very early stage in my life. So that definitely, literally set me up for who I am today. I literally have been against the grain. I'm not your traditional Pakistani young girl when people see me and expect me to behave like that. Nah, that's not me.
Yeah. And do you know what? When I saw that as well, because as you said, you've been very open about it in some of your posts, I started to look at even, people that I have around me, family members, kids, my nieces and so forth, cousins, female cousins, that are around the ages of 15 and 16. I just couldn't imagine someone like homeless at that age, especially like a female as well. At that age. And it made me start to think the world's a dangerous place at those ages. So some of those survival skills, you would have had to learn them on the spot. It's not something yet, there isn't a handbook for it.
No.
You'd have to learn them on the spot.
Yep, exactly. And I think that's where singing was really my saving grace, because, being in a children's home, so many of these young kids, they just don't care. They've got no respect for their parents, and they don't realize they're going to end up in a system that claims to care for them. But hell no, you're about to be thrown into a different set of experiences and circumstances that are literally going to almost make you or break you. And not everybody makes it. You couldn't sleep, you don't trust people. It wasn't easy, but, I'm grateful for who I am today as a result, because when I look at these young people, I can instantly connect with them.
Yes.
And say, whoa, I'm not one of these that are out to get you.
Yeah.
I'm someone that sincerely wants to connect with you, wants to change
your
future, because right now you're in self-destruct mode.
Yeah.
Because you think nobody cares, no one,
Yeah.
So yeah.
How did you come across breathwork? Because again, before like seeing you on social media and speaking with my friend Mike as well, I had no idea about breathwork. So how did you discover it?
Amazing question. So obviously I was in Kuwait. I was living there for 6 years. I was a teacher, and COVID had just kicked in.
Yeah.
And obviously because of, the abuse when I was younger, I've been married 4 times. I have 3 kids from 3 different fathers. Now people might be like, oh my God, but I'm no longer going to be ashamed of that. I understand that I was growing, I was healing, and I was learning to understand who I was and make the right decisions, right? And so by the time I got to that point, COVID, I think, really put people face to face with their demons, right? You were just in 4 walls. There was no escape. You couldn't go to the gym. You couldn't go socialize. You couldn't get drunk. You couldn't, especially in Kuwait, because it's a dry country. Do you know what I mean? You couldn't go smoke no weed. You were just head on dealing with your darkness, right? So it was a tough time for me, right? I'm there homeschooling my kids. I'm teaching, managing 13 classes from early years because that was my job, transitioning these teachers to teach young people on a platform. I was stressed, right? On top of that, my ex-husband had a mental breakdown. He suffered from delusional disorder, and our marriage had dissolved. We'd just come out of a divorce. So, mate, anyone that's hearing what I'm saying will know just one of those things can break you. But there I was, physically present, but I wasn't mentally present, you know. But I was grateful to live on across the road from a beach. And so we had a curfew, and I would go out, and I go out on this beach, you know, and it's literally deserted. It's like I've got a beach to myself. I'm with my kids, and I see this young black guy there. Now, what people need to understand is at this time of the year, George Floyd had just been, you know, murdered.
Yes. Yeah.
And so Black Lives Matters was all around, you know, and I see this young black dread just in his element. And I'm like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? I'm like, whatever you're doing, I want some of that. Give me some of that. You know what I mean? And I just knew. I said, I don't know who you are, but I know I am meant to buy into what, you know, and he was like, I'm a breathwork mentor. I was like, what? Can I get some of that, please? You know? God bless him, Reese. I love you, my brother. Like, he picked me up every morning and he would take me first to the beach, then we'd go to the park, you know, and he introduced me to breathwork. And because I'm a Muslim, I was like, okay, I can't do no yoga. I can't go out of the folds of Islam, and that's important.
Yeah.
And so we had to tweak the breathwork to coincide with what I wanted to do. And for me, what amazed me, you know, that's some heavy stuff. I told you what was going on, right? Where do you start? But the thing with breathwork is you don't have to do anything. Imagine, you know, rope that's become raveled in threads and it's all tangled and whatever. Breathwork literally just slowly, every time you're breathing, it becomes unraveled. Everything just starts to unravel and the answers just start to show themselves, right? And that's what happened before you knew it. And the one thing I said to Reese was, I said, my life is so black and white. I want the color back in my life, right? And before you knew it, that's what happened. You know, I started to, you know, grieve the loss of, you know, a marriage and losing a husband who no longer recognized me. I was like, this is not the man that I married. You know, mental health really took the wrong turn on him. And then, yeah, everything else, I started losing weight because what happens is with the breath work is you really just plug into you and who you are, and, you know, you start building a relationship with yourself. So if you grow that relationship and you love yourself, well, you're not going to put the wrong things into your body anymore because you're not acting from a place of irrationality. You're centered. You're coming from a place of rationality. You're like, okay, I'm very present now, you know?
Yeah. Do you know, when you say, right, because you're starting to really connect with yourself, right? Some people may find that scary because they may not like what they're connecting with. Did you find anything in terms of when you're starting to really now ground yourself and living in the present? How did that feel for you?
I mean, obviously, a lot of who I was started to unfold. So I got back to England and, you know, I would tell people about the breathwork, right?
Yeah.
And then before I knew it, you know, I was back in the public space. And I think what happened was I revisited who I was. I had to revisit who I was. I was no longer the doormat. I was no longer the woman that was going through domestic abuse in the relationship I was in. I was a new person. I was Shalina Litt. You know, I loved myself. However, I couldn't handle the love I was receiving from other people. And that scared me. You know, and I always say to people, like, I'm so grateful for anyone that I can connect with through my social media to inspire, right? I open my heart up so that I can help people. Because, you know, when you're in a dark space with your mental health, you are going through hell.
Yeah.
Right? When you're thinking about whether or not you want to live another day, right? You're going through hell. And I've been there. And so if I can give that alleviation to someone, great.
Yeah.
Now imagine these people are following me. They grow to love me. And they're so grateful for what I've shared because I've given them that alleviation. So when I see them out on the road and they're like, Shalina Litt. And I'm like, okay, like back up. Yeah, back up. Like you might know me, but I don't know you. Like, you know, oh, I follow you on social media. I'm like, okay, beautiful, you know. Do you speak to me? Oh no, I don't. And often a lot of people follow me and they don't speak to me. You know what I mean? Because obviously nobody wants to, not that they're embarrassed, but nobody wants to come forthright with some of the stuff that they're going through.
Yeah.
Right. And you know what? I think because my story of growing up was that my family didn't support me, I never saw my worth. And so now that I have a community of people that, you know, just really love me for being who I am and they're grateful for my existence, my ego can't, you know, manifest itself to a level beyond what I'm not prepared for. And so imposter syndrome kicks in and I'm like, no, whoa, I'm not that special. Relax. Just don't speak to me like that. And I get really uncomfortable. And that's what I would say a big part of last year, actually, I went through. There was that transition when I was just like, I'm going to get found out. I'm not that amazing. Like, you know, I'm not meant to be sitting with these people that are so important and so respected in the community. But did my work. Like I said, I continued to tap away with the breath work. And, you know, you said earlier, didn't you? You said a lot of people are uncomfortable to connect with themselves. Yeah, a lot of people are afraid to be still. They don't know how to do that. They're constantly in high alert, scrolling, right? Why? I started off this podcast talking about the time matrix, right?
Yeah.
How much of your life are you going to have spent scrolling, watching other people live while you just sit there and your life is going away? Time is precious. Do you know what I mean?
And I saw something, and I'm glad you've mentioned stillness. Stillness is important. I've only introduced that into my life a couple of years ago, right? But I think it's because what we were saying earlier on in terms of it's the fear. Because in life, we're constantly doing things, constantly doing things. We don't have time to just sit down and just be still and be comfortable with our own thoughts. What I wanted to ask you, though, is from the interactions that we've had, I see that you're a very strong person. Mm-hmm. But so that strength would have always been there. But when did you realize that you had that strength, that you're a strong person? When did you realize it for yourself?
I don't think I see it. Even now, I don't think I see it. I think I recognize that I'm good at doing what I do, but I think it's a good thing that I don't see that I'm anything. You know, I don't really see I just think I have a story to tell and I should do that. I think it's a glorification of God and God's story that I'm alive, you know. I've contemplated whether or not this is a story I should share, but it is the reality of who I am today. You know, I'm alive and I had to deal with survivor's guilt, you know, and I had to practice what I preach. My breath work, I needed it. I needed to be able to be alone with all of the dark thoughts that were presented to me. I needed to cry to God about the fact that a man that I loved, you know, suffered with mental health, and that a sister that I also loved didn't, you know, love herself enough to recognize that she needed to leave that situation. So for me now, my existence is really about using my hardships to really connect with people that are going through so much. And being still is so crucial because there is so much power waiting within. And people do not realize that, you know, they are plugged into someone else's story. You know, they're plugged into someone else's narrative.
Yeah.
They're so afraid to listen to their own or avoid their own pain.
Yeah.
You know, but there's just so much power in being still and healing. And
Yeah.
you know, if I am in a position to, you know, impact someone and wake them up and get their attention, then so be it.
Yeah.
You know.
How do you get to a point though where you're completely comfortable with yourself? Because some of the things that I see from you, even before when we were talking, you're comfortable in your own skin. You're comfortable with, you know, the decisions that you make. There was something that you said, and I saw it last night, right? Where, because on social media, right, it's just alerts going off. Everyone's got an opinion. And I think because since COVID, the social media platforms have blew up and it's given people a voice. But that voice, everyone's got an opinion on something. And you posted, right, and you said quite firmly that I don't need to respond to people, but I'm going to say something, right? And I think it was around, somebody probably commented around Palestine,
Yeah.
right? And I liked your response because you made it clear that I don't have to say anything. I don't have to respond to all of you, right? But I will say this. Where do we get that strength, though, to take control of our own destiny and our own thought process and our own responses?
I think it's just plugging into your higher self. You know, that's why I love what higher self is all about. I love what Aaron's doing with the brand, the clothing, because I think being still is about connecting with that higher source, right? I do not fear mankind. What I fear is the day that I'll stand before the Most High and be held to account for what I do, you know, and I refuse to be part of someone else's narrative, right? The way that this whole agenda is on social media and whatever, you're tiptoeing about who you should be and this and that. I'm like, listen, God is my protector. Do you know what I mean? I meditate and I take time to think about it. And I had to say what I said because, you know, that's the truth. Social media has now given us a window into someone else's business and pain, right? Where was you born? You know, God has given you your own hardships, right? Where you live, what's on your doorstep. Is your neighbor hungry? Is your neighbor fed, right? Are your children well, right? I think a lot of people are distracted now and they're not connected to the things, the values that matter the most. And like I said, if it takes for me to say something that's going to make people go, oh my God, did she really go there? Well, then wake up. Yeah, that's the reality. I'm 45 years old. Do you know what I mean? I give thanks. People are dropping like flies around me, you know. And if I've got another day, like I'm going to use my breath to, you know, speak in righteousness.
I want to talk a bit more, right, about imposter syndrome, because you said something as well in terms of, because imposter syndrome, it's real. It's a real thing. And one of the things that I look at is because we don't openly talk with each other, I could be going through imposter syndrome and you would never know. And you probably going through it as well. But because we're not speaking, we're not sharing. But what you said was a lot of people go through this. But how do we overcome it? Because you mentioned around somebody's going through issues, right? And we walk around with a smile on our faces, right? But you don't know what's going on with that person individually, right? So in terms of reaching out, number one, what is the imposter syndrome and how has it affected you? But also number two, the importance of reaching out to someone when you see that, you know, something's not going well with that individual.
You know, I love that song by Libianca, People. I've been drinking more alcohol. Did you check on me? Right?
Yeah.
I tell you something. You could have a bag of followers. I don't care about followers. What I care is who's knocking my door, who's checking if Shalina's really okay, right? That's what really matters nowadays. And for me, yeah, imposter syndrome was about me growing. And if anyone doesn't know what imposter syndrome is, obviously it's, don't know what the definition is, but ultimately you just find yourself challenged and you're like, oh my God, someone's going to find me out. I'm not meant to be here,
Yes.
you know? But, you know, how did I overcome it? And I'm going to go back to the breath work, right? I stopped trying to control my destiny. I gave what was not in my control to the Most High. And I said, what's in my control? I'm going to do my best. And you know what happened? My circle of people changed. You know, people that I thought wanted good for me, they didn't want good for me, you know. They were waiting for me to fall flat on my face. It hurt me. I cried a little bit like, wow, I thought you were winning for me, but you're not. You're just hating on the fact that I'm going higher than you now, or I'm elevating faster than you are, or I'm making more money than you are, or people get happier with me now. You weren't happy for me. Okay, but I see you now. Bye. And I had to grow. And what happened was for every person I lost, I guarantee you, Most High delivered me somebody that was like, yo, Shalina, what you doing down here? Down there? Come over here, man. Oh, nah, I'm good over here. Nah, come up here. Come. And I had people that saw me. They saw my worth. And they were like, nah, we're not letting you operate at this frequency. You're coming up. Do you know what I mean? And it was like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, okay. You're sitting on the sofa with people like, okay. You know? But your clothes look so fresher than mine. Mine are dusty. Oh my God, if you ever know, but I got a hole in my socks and, you know what I mean? Like, I ain't got no milk tonight. Like, you know, but these are like, you know, oh yeah, man, it's mad. And so I hope that answers, you know, the question. But yeah, everyone's going to come across imposter syndrome. But, you know, it's beautiful. It means you're coming up. And, you know, how is imposter syndrome created? Look, most of us, right, if you're brown or you're black, you know, the BAME community, because they just want to put us in one bucket, you know what I mean, right, have got, you know, generally tend to have worse off circumstances. We're dealing with racism that is going to almost oppress us and devalue that, you know, bring down our worth. And so when we're in a room of people that are successful, that narrative has already been created, right? I never forget when I was in university and I was learning about, you have the national curriculum, but then you have the hidden curriculum. And the hidden curriculum is the set of attitudes and beliefs that your children are going to gain from the children they're playing with, the little comments that the teachers are saying, right? That sets the tone. Oh yeah, this one ain't going to be a doctor. So you know what? Oh, why don't you learn to go and do this, you know, Jonathan or whatever, right? That shapes you. And so, you know, we have to understand, you know, and this is the work that I'm going to start going down with the breath work, is now focusing my I want to give support to parents to reconnect with their children, right? Because I call it hope parenting. I was stressed out. I was a single mom, you know what I mean? Trying to work, trying to study, trying to hitting burnout every now and then, where I got myself so sick because I was hurting myself, all because I didn't know how to regulate my emotions, right? I know recently, I think her name was Andrea, and she passed away. I think she was 32 and she left behind 2 children. You know, like, that's really young to be going, but I'm hearing this so often. And I think we have to learn to pause and reconnect and be like, okay, am I operating from a place of well-being? You know, because I'll be like, it's time to get out of bed now. You know what I mean? And I've shouted at my kids. By the time my kids got to school, they were traumatized, right? But I'm a loving mum. I didn't want that for my kids, but it was out of my control. And so with the breath work, I was able to, I call it go from not doing Hulk parenting to Mary Poppins parenting. Oh, good morning. Oh, come on. We don't want to be late because I woke up early and because I organized my time and because I'm raising my children to understand the value of being organized and right. Oh dear. And if we did get late, no, it don't matter. It's not the end of the world, right? If I got late to work, it's not the end of the world. But let's ask ourselves, kids, how did this happen? How can we make sure that this don't happen again? Sounds too good to be true, innit?
It does, it does. But do you know what as well, though? Because our emotions, right, really dictates what we do. We often do things off an emotion, and then afterwards we regret it. With the breath work, though, how can breath work help you to not let your emotions dictate your decision making or what you do?
So we go back to basics. What is an emotion? It's energy in motion, right? And I think whenever I ask people to do breath work, I'll say, first of all, take a note of how you feel now. And I think the more you familiarize yourself with what emotions are and how they make you feel, is the more that you see something coming. So like if I'm about to want to slap down my children, do you know what I mean? Oh, even my kids call it, Mommy, you want to go and do some breathing? You want to go do some breath work? I'm like, okay, like, and we can laugh about it now. Or my kids will be like speaking to me a certain way. I'll be like, listen, go take yourself to your room, go do some breath work, yeah? Come speak to me when you're not shouting at me. Who are you talking to? I'm not your friend. Come on now, And I think when you can get to that point, it's just powers. It's beautiful because, like I said, you are fully present. Yeah, you're no longer being controlled. You are in control, right? And then once you start to do that, you start to then understand. Honestly, last year I said the word was energy, and it sure was. I started to realize that emotions are what? Energy in motion. So energy is going to come from cause and response, right? The reaction. Okay, so someone can trigger an emotion, but so can food, so can places, right? Yeah. So when you start to fix all these things and you start fix up the way that you eat, you start to look at your environment. So on my website, I've put a declutter guide. Why did I do that? Because I understood that if your home is a manifestation of your mind, go open up your cupboards and tell me what's going on in your mind right now. Is everything in your cupboard in date? Do you know what I mean? Do you know where everything is? Or is there things in there that you've forgotten about from you? Oh my days, I fucking love it. You know what I mean? And so it all just starts to fall into place.
Yeah.
I'm selling it to you now, innit? You're like, boy, I need some of this breath work, you
are, you are. For the viewers then, someone's watching this now and really considering doing this, right? What can they expect from a first session? And then is it like a course, like a 12-week course? And do you leave them with something that they can do at home as well? What can they expect?
I mean, so there's different approaches. You could do it online, because I have overseas people that I work with. You can do it one-to-one, where I'll come out, and we'll tell you to take off your shoes and socks, get you grounded, and I'll do some connecting with you. We can do it in groups. I'm starting some group works at a community centre. There's just so many different ways. It really depends on a clarity call, which is what I'll do with everyone that's interested in my breath work.
Yeah.
To see what suits them, because not everybody could afford to have a one-to-one with me. But I love what I do, and so I want to be able to let everybody access it.
Yeah.
So I am creating an online course that people can just outright buy, and that's it really. One thing that I've realized is that working with people has taught me things. Like I did not realize how much breathwork was going to impact so many different areas. Like, weight loss, if someone was dealing with grief, your sex life, sleeping better, eating better, It's just phenomenal, all because you took time to just pause and breathe.
Yeah.
You know, people are afraid to be still, but being still means that you're letting your body recover, right? You're understanding the different narratives that are running, the different programs, the mind space, the heart space, the ego, trauma, people that have scarred you. You've held a grudge for like so many years, but you didn't even know it until you went to your heart space and was like, you know what? I'm gonna forgive that. I'm gonna let it go.
And can you do it with young people as well and kids, or is it just adults? How does it work if you do it with young people?
So on my website, I've done a breathwork guide, and it talks about age adaptations. So you can start it with young children as young as 3.
Oh, okay.
And I know that because, my son has watched me and he boasts that he's a breathwork mentor, and he's like, one time he's seen someone crying, he was like, Mommy, should I go over and tell him about the breathwork? And I was like, no, because, it's mum and dad's there. They might not appreciate it. But, I think it's really important. And because I know about, my son's father's experience with mental health, I was like, oh Lord, I really want him to understand how to get on a hold of his emotions, not let them control him.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he's just been doing it. So I just adapted it. So in the early stages, you would just say to them, okay, if you're feeling angry, I'm going to blow all that anger into the balloon. So you're like, and you're really angry. Oh my God, that's going to be a big balloon, like, you know what I mean? Then you pop it and boom. Oh my God, don't you feel better? Okay, let's do it again,
Yeah.
And then you just build on that concept, and yeah, and you get some emotional stamina, you know what I mean? I say, like, it's just like if I told you to go to the gym and pick up some heavy weights, we got to build that stamina, we got to build that discipline, and the more you do it, the easier you get.
Do you take it into the schools as well, or is it something that you would think about going into the schools and doing that work?
Yeah. I take it into schools. I take it into colleges. Or just whoever comes to me and delivers it and tells me. I think because of my own, I've got an early years degree. I'm a lecturer in a college. I watched students the other day with their mock exams, and they were struggling to be without their phones.
Okay.
We have a crisis where, people do not know how to be still. That they're saying it, and so I looked and thought, wow, this is a big problem. Because if you've got a child that's going to go for their GCSEs, how are they going to be able to put their phone aside and focus? They can't. And you can see that, we're in a culture where it's been programmed, and that's going to impact the next generation because genetically that's been coded in your DNA. You're wondering why so much kids have got ADHD? Well, it's the big plan, isn't it?
I mean, I want to touch on a little bit, right, in terms of the knife crime, because I know that you recorded a track 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And you've decided to release it recently.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I want to get though is there's a problem with knife crime. There's people losing their lives, right? And something that's always plays in the back of my mind, right, is the trauma that it's gonna kids are going through. Not only their families and the ones that's lost their loved ones and the friends, but also the perpetrator that's committed that crime. You can't commit a crime like that and it just leaves your mind like it's rife. Why did you decide to release the track 9 years on? And also with the breath work, does it have a place in helping those young people in terms of like PTSD and things like that?
So one of the jobs that I was given was to work with young people that were in police protection and under gang crime. And one young man that I was working with, when he shared his story, I am really emotional because it does. You know, it hurts so much that there is a community that don't understand what to do. And I looked at this young man who really felt like he had no other choice but to have murdered by the age of 13. He'd murdered a couple of people. And for me to then help him connect with himself and say, forgive yourself because you're not responsible. The way that you got raised, everything about you what has led to it, the music you're listening to. And so what I did was, through music, I got him to do his rapping, you know, and he's doing that trap stuff. Yo, up, you know, stab a man up, and you know what I mean? Da, 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 da. And I was just like, so I was like, okay, what emotions are being conveyed here? And, you know, and we started to break it down and unpack, because that's what happens with the breath work. Is we initially, all the superficial stuff is what comes up, and then eventually we start to get to the deeper stuff, which is often trauma led, and you get to your inner child. And really, he was angry because his dad would go to work and his mum was a church woman and whatever, but was neglecting the children and smoking weed behind closed doors. So his dad's working his ass off, but in the meantime, he needs to survive. And so he ended up being the breadwinner of the family. And when I seen the innocence of this young man and his vulnerability, he was like, you know, everyone's saying I've got schizophrenia. And I goes, do you think you've got schizophrenia? Because, you know, and I've seen it. Everyone's quick to say someone's got schizophrenia. But if you're on road and you are a young black guy that is immediately identified with these postcode wars and you're walking down the road, wouldn't you be paranoid naturally? Wouldn't you naturally have to watch your back? Everything you do, you got to think about and whatever. And so the belief systems I've really had to work on, you know, and I tried my best, but it wasn't good enough, you know. And so I've got mixed race children who are identified as black. You know, I see a community that needs a lot of help, but don't necessarily know how to coordinate themselves or trust bringing in people that want to help, and it hurts a lot. And so music is all I had left. You know, I give thanks. Singing is something that helped me when I was younger. And at the time, the artists that are on the track, so there's Royalty, that's Soldieress, and then there is Z, who is a rapper, is an Asian rapper. And there was the Lazelle's killings that were going on, where there was a lot of drama going on. And we'd initially wrote it around that, wanting to impact it. And what I'm saying in the chorus is basically that life has no cost. You know, you can't put a cost to it. And what people don't realize is that, you know, the conjurer of all this drama is the devil, and your soul is up for sale. You need to wake up. You need to realize that. And so I'm trying my best to utilize the gifts that I've been given to connect with a community that I think really need help. I see so many different people, you know, street academics doing stuff. I see Zimbo doing stuff. You know, I've seen, I've forgotten his name, but Farron X Paul or something, where he goes and collects knives and.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
I see all of that being happening, but it's not enough. It's not enough, you know. It's not enough.
I see, because we spoke off air about this, and just my reflection, because I know that the community, we need to come together, and it's going in the right direction. There's, you know, the Standards One group as well, which, you know, they're doing some amazing work, right? And I can only see that growing. But what I see, something that you've done, and I can testify and say that it's true, because number one, with this track, you've brought different people together, unity on this track. But also there's something that happened off air, right? And you were speaking to one of your friends that's in Egypt.
Yeah.
And we spoke about it because the power of how you're connecting people. Your friend was in Egypt, you know, someone else in Egypt, you've connected them. So coming back to the community, what do you think is missing that we need to do in the community to start bringing people together?
I think it's happening. You know, I never take credit for anything that has come of what appears to be my success. You know, the breathwork for me, like I said, plugs me in to my spirituality and people that are in alignment with what it is that I want to achieve, you know. And if people resonate with me and they reach out, then it's a great thing in terms of moving forward. That's what I think is happening. You know, in 2004, I was wearing the niqab. You know, I was fully covering my hair and covering my face. So that's what the niqab is. And there's that point where the community didn't know who I was, but media intelligence did. And I've had that foresight to see how these organized institutes work to almost commodify and manipulate communities, the Muslim community, the Black community. And I think at the end of the day, we can only do what's in our power and what's on our doorstep, you know. And I'm not hopeless. Like I said, I'll deal with what's within my reach. And if God gives me the capability of reaching it to a bigger audience through the likes of podcasting, then I'll jump on it.
Yeah. We're about to start wrapping our episode up. There's two questions. The first one is we always ask the previous guests to write a question down. We don't know what the question is. We're gonna learn it together.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a question from one of our previous guests. What was the most overrated information given to you as a young person that has now been detrimental to you as in your adulthood?
I guess the illusion that fame would make me happy.
Yeah. And yeah. Do you know what, right? It's funny you say that because before we started this episode as well, we was having a conversation around finances, fame, you know, things that we acquire. And in life, right, sometimes instead of really following our purpose and our passion, we follow the career that's going to pay us the most. We get more money, we spend more. And it's only in our adulthood we realize that we want to follow our passion rather than the financial gain.
Yeah.
So I think it's a fitting question and a nice, succinct response as well. Just hit the nail on the head with, one word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't, it's not, when I die, I think about death all the time. I'm grateful to be alive, and I just think, what am I leaving behind? And for me, what's important is that I have left behind kids that can continue to live this life with less of the hardship that I endured, and that I've connected to my community and made a difference. Being an Asian girl that married a Black guy was a big thing. It's not something that happens every day. It's happening a lot more now.
Yeah.
When you've got lots of other things that are coming into narratives, like being transgender, and it's really tough times for mental health at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think one thing I want people to remember, if we're going to wrap up the podcast, is check on the people that you love. That don't mean sending them a DM. No, get up, go, knock on their door. We don't go to people's houses anymore. When my friends holler at me and whatever, I'm like, come to my house. I'll cook up some food. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's love. Give someone a hug. It releases endorphins, and I see the social anxiety in young people. They don't know how to socialize.
Yeah.
They don't, and it's a shame because they're missing out. You see them, they're in a room, and they're all on their devices.
Yeah.
You're physically present, but you're not mentally present.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's dangerous. The other day I heard that a young girl got raped in the metaverse. She was underage. Huh? She got raped? While she had the gear on, a bunch of guys came into the room in the metaverse. What? Yeah, that's the world that we're living in, right? See, back in the day when I got sent to my room, it was me one in my room,
Yeah.
Okay, it was me one in my room. Now, you send your child to the room. They've got the whole universe in their hand. They've got people trying to speak to them that might not even be who they say that they are. You know what I'm saying? It's the reality. We need to wake up. Parents need to wake up. And young people, I'm not going to hold them accountable. We as adults need to do right by these young people.
Yeah. To that young person, 15 or 16-year-old, that may be in their room viewing this, they may be going through problems with their families, disagreements. Teenagers now, they're angry with the world. What would you say to that young person in their room?
Spiritual warfare, the agenda is to take us away from spirituality. And yeah, you might be living in a house where your parents aren't doing right by you, but working towards understanding righteousness is the best way. We're living in a society where children they're like, I don't want to get married. I don't want to this or that. You know what I mean? Fornication is being glamorized. Like, what's fornication? Does anybody know what fornication is anymore? You know what I mean? But everybody's out there doing it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we're in crazy times, and when you look at this generation and, their mental health, like, you just got to wake up. And I always start off when I do meet young people, I'll say, if I told you to slap yourself right now, would you slap yourself? No, I ain't going to slap myself. Okay. Well, let me tell you something. There's a bunch of people that know that you wouldn't do that. So what they've done is they've got you to hurt yourself and you don't even know it, right? How is it that people know what, when I was looking at marketing, what brand of clothing you're going to be wearing, right? What group of people are going to be going to this shop? What people are going to protest? Where you're from, your social demographic, your race, your this, your that. Listen, are you part of the agenda? Who's part of it? Are you on God's agenda, the Most High's agenda, spiritual, righteousness, all of that? Or are you on this agenda of, I don't even know what to call it, but I'm not in that path. It's the lost. A lot of people are lost. Find yourself, reconnect with yourself, breathe, be still, don't be afraid, because love lies in that fear. That is what I'll say. Love lies in that fear.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. You've had an amazing journey, right? Amazing. Thanks for being so open, transparent today. Over the years, you've gone through a journey.
Mm-hmm.
You've gone through a journey. Knowing everything that you know now, if you could go back and speak to that 15 or 16-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
what are the few things that you would say to her?
I don't know, actually. I'm proud of who I was. I don't think I can change anything. I think everything happened for a reason, Unfortunately for me, my family didn't love and protect me the way that they should have. And so that's a really hard one. For me, I've had to come to a peace with who I was and who it's led me to be. My brand is I am Shalina. There's a story behind that, because I changed my name legally. And someone said to me, why did you do that? And I was like, because my family killed me. I was no longer that person. I was just a shell. I wasn't living, I was surviving, right? They were like, you can't let your family do that. You are Shalina. You are Shalina Litt. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I am. I am Shalina. And that was how I Am Shalina came into existence. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. And we wish you all the best. And if we can help on your continued journey, promote anything for you, if you've got anything that you need us to do for you,
Yes.
our door's always open.
I hope the community come and follows, because you've got some great guests. I was humbled by, like, you know, me? So yes, thank you.
Thank you. Bless.